If you saw it hanging on the wall, you'd think it's just another bow. Smooth, balanced, nothing flashy. But hidden in the curve of its limbs and the whisper of its string is something most people won't notice right away. The touch of thousands of hands, and the spirit of one man that you probably have never met. One man who made this all possible. But that man isn't me. It was dark outside, but it was winter, so it was not late. Probably 7 p.m. I was 14 years old and attempting to build my first bow. I still remember that feeling. My hands were tingly from the cold as I tried to steady them to work on the bow. I stood in my dad's overcrowded garage staring at a rough piece of Osage orange wood, bending it on a makeshift tillering tree, wondering if I could actually turn it into something that would shoot an arrow. My action bias was strong, as I carved the wood without any knowledge of what I was doing. I used any tool I could find, not even knowing what tools would be best. I remember attempting to use a handsaw to shave wood from the stave. This, of course, did not work. Then something tucked behind a pile of fishing poles and drywall screws caught my eye. It was a big knife-looking thing with 2 handles. I figured out I could grab the handles and pull it towards me, and the knife would actually cut into the wood. Often, it would cut too deep, but it was better than a saw, or the 2-inch pocket knife I was carrying. What did I find? Yes, you guessed it, a draw knife. I definitely didn't know which way was up and which way was down. It was the best tool I had. I left the sapwood on, not knowing that this was a recipe for disaster. 20 minutes later, I had a bunch of fire starters for our backyard chimenea. I was devastated. But the bow did bend. I was even able to draw it to 18 inches before it broke. And this gave me hope. Less than a week later, I was back at it. I scoured the early internet for information and learned that the sapwood should be removed, and that for the strongest bow, a growth ring should be chased. I learned you should work with the wood in its grain, not against it. And instead of making a bow, the goal should be to unveil it from its stave. This was lesson 1, my first bow making lesson. I failed a lot. My first bows cracked, split, and sometimes barely flung an arrow more than a few feet, but I loved every second of it. After all, a mistake is just information. It is what you do with that information that proves your identity. What I didn't know then was that I was laying the foundation of something much bigger than just a hobby. Years later, in 2019, I decided to share my experiments online. I started a little YouTube channel. It wasn't fancy, just me, some tools, and a camera that barely focused. Not long after I started the channel, I was having dinner with my brother-in-law. He sparked an idea when he said,
"It would be interesting if you made a video series and called it Will It Bow?"
And then I said, "I'm listening."
I know it's a weird idea, but I think people may like it. You should take unusual materials, odd shapes. I don't know, like weird ideas. Take something not meant to be a bow, upcycle it into one. See if the odd objects can actually bend and launch an arrow. Think about it. When you fail, it will be entertaining, and when you succeed, it will be interesting.
Shortly after this conversation, I decided to give this series a shot. And to my surprise, it was a hit. Some of the bows were absolute disasters. Others shocked me by working better than I even expected. But the real surprise wasn't the bows. It was the people. People started watching. They left comments. They told me about their own experiments, what they tried in their garages, shops, and backyard porches. Suddenly, I wasn't just building bows alone anymore. I was part of a community that cared about the same weird things that I did. And from that, 2 unexpected lessons came from my experimentation. The first was that I found the limits of materials. I tested bows to failure. I learned why bows break, so much so I developed the ability to predict it. In an odd way, I just started to know. And if someone was making a bow and sent me a photo or showed it to me in person and said, "What do you think about it?" I could make a prediction such as, when you draw the bow back on the tillering stick, it'll barely reach 29 inches before it shatters. It'll break starting at 3 inches above the handle on the upper limb. The crack will start due to an improper tiller and probably a weak backing, so expect fingers of wood to lift off of the back. This will probably send the heavy piece with the handle flying through the air towards the ceiling, and the lighter piece will shoot down towards the ground. Then we'd test it, and as predicted, it would happen just that way. The predictions were correct, not as a result of a guess, but because of pattern recognition. I think this was the result of thousands of hours studying how bows bend, how they feel, and how they look, and even how they break. It turns out that the best way to learn the limits of something is to break the limit repeatedly. That's a nice way of saying I probably have the world record for breaking the most bows by a bowyer. Yes, lots of them on purpose, but some accidentally. And those accidental ones are the ones that teach you the most. But that's not the only lesson I learned. Lesson number 2. I have learned what the majority of people prefer in a bow. Like what they're looking for, what they actually want. A bow does not need all the bells and whistles to be great, and some of the extras you can add to a bow drive up the cost of production dramatically. You see, over the past 5 years, I have sold custom bows and one-off bows. I have built all types of bows and styles, and even committed to building bows that I probably should have passed on. Crossed the lines to learn the lessons, huh? But with Shatterproof's retail shop, I have shown many of my bows to lots of people. I have reached millions in videos and hundreds in person, learning style preferences and shooting goals. I learned what people like, and more importantly, what they do not like. All of the bows I built in the past for customers started with a mindset that did not serve me as good as I intended it to. I thought, make the bow that I like, and if I like it, others must like it too. And even though this is true, I learned my preferences are not always the majority of people's preferences. I guess this is no surprise. I have always been a little extreme, a bit wild. After all, I built around 1,000 bows before I turned 30 years old, so my perspective is skewed. But with these lessons in mind, I have taken everything into account to make the people's bow. You designed this bow more than I did, from the price to the looks and functionality. And not only so, Kaz, talking to thousands of you through emails, conversations, selling many bows to you guys, has gathered all of his information as well and relayed it to me on what the people want. If we made a bow for the people, if we made their bow, what would that be? This sparked an idea, and me and Kaz started discussing it. Over time, this idea turned into an obsession for me. I worked hours on end. No camera, no audience, no people. Many days, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Maybe it's nuts, but if I get an idea, it plagues me until I make it reality. Just ask my wife. I can disappear for days. I only do this with her approval and support, but I know it's not easy for her to watch the boys with no help. The benefit, though, is that I get 2 months of work done in 1 week. And oddly enough, the week does not seem long, but rather like a half day of work. So I worked like this, and the obsession continued as I proceeded to wonder, what if I could build a bow that combined everything I've learned? Something that honored the past, but used the best materials and best methods I could get my hands on today. What if it was cheap, but shot better than some $1,000 bows? What if it were indestructible? What if 24-inch draws and 34-inch draws could shoot it? What if it were smooth but fast? What if it were the cheapest handmade 3-piece bow in the US? But if you handed it to a buddy at the range, he would think it was the most expensive. So I continued to talk to other bowyers, to archers, to beginners, to champions alike. I listened to what frustrated them about their bows. I asked what they wished existed but couldn't find. Handing everybody a bow, having them close their eyes and say, how does this feel in the hand? Having people shoot the bow, how does this feel? The experience of it, the things that matter. I tested many ideas. Some were flops. Some were so good they surprised even me. But piece by piece, design by design, I got closer to what I knew was possible. A bow that just felt right the moment you pulled it back. I wish I could say there was a single eureka moment. The moment that I knew this is it, this was done. But the truth was, it was hundreds of little moments. Late night sanding the riser until it fit just perfectly, adjusting tiller by fractions of an inch, swapping out materials until the limbs were smooth but snappy, changing limb and riser ratios and adjusting tiny angles, testing the thickness of glass to the core material ratios, limb tapers horizontally and vertically, inventing glue-up jigs, testing taper styles, building risers, and having many people try them to tell me where it feels off. I mean, come on. How hard is it to build a handle that fits most people? Every hand is different. But as the number of tests increased, patterns started to arise. And this is what I can work with. The name of this bow is the Bob Garner bow, named after my late grandpa, who taught my dad how to shoot a bow. for the first time. This trickled down to me and was my introduction to archery and hunting as well. More on him in a future video, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear about this legend. So, will everybody love this bow? Probably not. After all, we all have our own tastes and preferences, but I really believe that most people will find this bow to be a go-to choice for those special moments. I mean, think about it. What bow do you reach for when it matters? The one with the most expensive wood, best inlays, or built with the most hand tools? Probably not. But rather, the one that is effortless to draw, the one that has little vibration, and the one that shoots arrows that fly like missiles from your bow to the target. This is the role you have played in building this bow, helping me determine what matters and what does not. In a very real sense, you helped me build this bow. I have been listening, I have been reading, I have been paying attention to what you like. So I say 10,000 people helped me design this bow, but in reality, it's many more. That's it. That's perfect. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's done. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your opinions, for your hopes and desires. Thank you for taking my polls and surveys. And thank you for testing my bows. Thank you for telling me what bows you like. And possibly, more importantly, being honest when you don't like it. You have helped me make this bow. Many people will shoot this bow, and instead of thanking me, they should thank you. But not just you. There is someone who came before you, who had an even bigger role in making this bow, and we should thank him. Bob Garner, my grandpa, was a man who made this world a better place, and a man he was. A man who made my life better, who poured gas on my flame when it started to go out. It is an honor to do this in his memory, to take inspiration from his actual recurve bow, to take inspiration from him. One night in the Colorado mountains, we were sitting around a campfire. My dad, some of my brothers, and Grandpa. Now, Grandpa didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. Everyone did. His words didn't just fill silence. They carried weight. The fire did what fires do. Made dudes open up about things that they would rarely otherwise talk about. The conversation drifted like the smoke coming from the fire. Until there was a moment when Grandpa said, "When you enjoy an experience, the outcome doesn't matter so much. I think people who focus too much on outcomes aren't that happy." That landed. It was the kind of truth that doesn't need explaining. It's been 13 years since that day, and I still think about it. What Grandpa meant was simple, but it changed how I see things. Life isn't about what you get. It's about who you become. Grandpa, this is for you.
Find the words and write them down. Take it in, you're glory bound. A high lonesome cowboy, some truck driving man. Your day will come too, so hang in if you can. Just count the days until you're found. Saddle up, you're glory bound. records and spit 'em out. Find some love in here. It's falling from the clouds. Find someone out in the crowd. Pack it up, you're glory bound.